to ditch complicated and make life and business simple. That's what I'm talking about in this episode. And there's a lesson that I learned a few years ago now, and I wanted to share that with you today. If you've ever been in the training room with me or on a coaching session with me, you may well have heard me mention this before, and it's something that I repeat pretty often, both as a reminder to myself, and also because it's something that you need to hear time and time again. And especially as you grow and evolve, this topic of making things more simple becomes even more relevant. And I see this all the time with my clients. And believe me, I've been there too. I've been there myself, and I'm constantly working on how to make life and business more simple, because as your business grows, your level of responsibility grows. The level of the problems that you need to work on grows. Okay, that happens. Like the level of things that I do now in my business is much more complex than it was when I first started my business. But if I was still using the same thinking that I had when I first started my business now, it would be a bit of a, what kind of show. So it's really around looking at how things are and creating more simple solutions. Okay, so now I remember really clearly when I was a speaker. So a few years ago, I was a speaker at Freedom Fest, which is a 3-day planning and growth event for women in business. And I was there to speak about the values levels of thinking that we evolve through, and specifically how that affects you in business and how you think about money. So a lot of it was around money. And it was a really interesting topic because it's very deep. And, there's the values levels of thinking work is based on the work of Dr. Claire Graves, who was around, discovering all this stuff around the same time that Abraham Maslow was doing, hierarchy of human needs and those kinds of things. And what Dr. Claire Graves did was he identified essentially, I think originally there was like 6 or 7, and then it's identified that I think they've moved into like levels 8, 10, and 12 as a potential level of where people's thinking could be at somewhere in the world right now. But generally, what we see in the major population is that a lot of people, and especially a lot of people that I work with, are doing a values level 4 to 5 shift, where essentially values level 4 is where you have a job and you have a lot of certainty and everything's done by the book. And if you rock up at this time and you work till this time and you do these specific tasks, you'll get paid this amount of money. And, everything, there's a lot of certainty in those kinds of things involved. But when you move into a business, I should say, when you move into your own business, that thinking doesn't cut it in business land, because you can rock up in your home office at a certain time and leave at a certain time. But unless you're doing business growth type things, which is generally a lot of sales and marketing and that kind of stuff, you're not going to succeed. So it's a different environment. It requires a different level of thinking, and it's a value shift. And it's a hard value shift to make. It's one of the big ones I work a lot with, especially like a lot of women in business that I work with, because to succeed in business, you have to have that neurology for sales and marketing. If you don't already have it, you have to develop it. And you only develop neurology in this kind of way when you're in an environment that requires you to have that. Okay. And so your neurology essentially develops according to stress, right? It's a coping mechanism. So unless you put yourself in an environment where you're under some amount of stress, unless you develop this new neurology, you just won't develop it, right? So that's why, having a coach when you start a business or growing a business is super valuable, because it can help you do that values level thinking shift. So I see a lot of that 4-5, where a lot of people have that issues with uncertainty and visibility and feeling icky about sales and marketing and that kind of stuff. Or the other side, I see people who are in a values level 6 thinking, which is where people are very kind of spiritual thinking, and they're almost too spiritual to be making money. Okay, and business doesn't succeed in that space either. They need to evolve further onto values level 7. But we won't go into depth about all of that because, when I'm teaching that, I spend 2 days teaching this topic in NLP Master Practitioner. But all you need to know is that there is a values level shift. There's thinking, your thinking evolves based on your environment. And it's a very deep topic, especially when you're talking about business and money, because like I said, it brings up some of these really deep, like mucky kind of stuff for people around self-worth and what does money really mean, and all those kinds of things, especially for, not all, but especially for a lot of female coaches in business. We see that because I see people say, well, I love what I do and I do it for free. Well, that's exactly why you should be charging someone, because I know if I go to see someone, I don't want to go and see someone who finds it really hard and doesn't really know what they're doing and doesn't like it, right? You're going to pay good money to someone who finds what they do, what you need, really easy, and that they're really good at it. So anyway, like I said, it's a big topic, but it's coming back to this: how do we make things complicated? And if you want to go more into money thinking and money blocks and those kinds of things, I recorded an episode about that a little while back, so you can go back and listen to that anyway. But going back to what I specifically remember from this event that I was speaking at, and at that event there was another speaker there, and his name is Clint Adams. Clint Adams has a group of businesses under the Hectagon group, and Hectagon is his parent group, and he's one of my clients as well. So shout out to Clint and his businesses. He's got in there Water Pro, Railways, Dirt Cart, and Lawn Hub. He's very successful. He's been in business for quite a few years. He's on track for turning over $20+ million across his businesses and growing. Okay, so he's growing towards doing 100 million. So and I'm not sharing anything here that's not already public knowledge. He talks about his business growth and his goals and working with me. I've worked with him a lot around anxiety and different things, and he talks about that quite openly on his socials. But the thing about Clint, he's extremely good at marketing, and he's very business focused. And so he was speaking at this event and had, opened it up for Q&A, and someone in the audience asked him, basically, how should I go about selling this service or program that I have to offer? And his response was very, very simple, right? It was extremely simple. Now, like I said, this is a man who has very complex business structure. He's got several businesses. He's got a parent company. There's a lot of complicated things going on, but his answer was very, very simple. And it's a brilliant example of the difference between simple and complicated. And I'm going to tell you all about it. So what he said was, okay, great. So what you're going to do is decide your audience, create your offer, market it, and make sales. Boom. Okay, boom. That's it. Pretty simple, right? Like very simple. So I'm going to tell you this lesson and then break it down so you can apply it for yourself. So the lesson is, as you evolve your thinking, you go from creating complex solutions to simple problems, and you evolve to be able to create simple solutions to complex problems. All right, so I'll repeat that for you. So you go from creating complex solutions to simple problems to being able to create simple solutions to complex problems. This is very key. Okay, so what makes things complicated? What makes things complicated to start with? How do we get things to be so complicated? So when Clint said, when he was answering this question and he said, decide your audience, create your offer, market it, and make sales, it's very focused and simple. Okay, it's very focused and simple. So the things that we do that make things complicated are generally all fear-based. And this is true to how we evolve through our values levels, especially 1 to 6. The evolution of that is overcoming fears. Okay. And so for example, if we look at this, what Clint said again, instead of just saying, okay, let me decide on my audience. So instead of just picking out your ideal audience or niche and going with it, often people will get into this scarcity mindset of not wanting to leave anyone out and try to be too general and end up trying to serve everyone. Complicated, right? Makes things complicated. It makes it complicated for you to know what you're doing, what offers you're going to put out, whatever else. It makes it complicated for anyone else to really understand what it is that you do. Complicated. Just pick an audience or a niche and go with it. Also, instead of just being clear on the value that you have and create an offer and just put it out to market for feedback, what tends to happen is that people start doubting themselves and thinking back and forward on every possible scenario of, will anyone pay that much? Will people think I'm greedy? Who am I to charge that kind of money? And on and on and on. Okay, that's all complicated. Right? You could just simply decide what your value is and what the value of your offers is and put it out there and get some feedback. All this other stuff makes it complicated. And the same as just market it, right? Instead of just marketing it, people get caught up in these fears of being visible and being seen and not wanting to be too much in people's face and not, worrying about, I don't want to look too salesy and imposter syndrome and comparing yourself to other people and all that kind of stuff. Complicated. That's all complicated. That makes everything complicated. Simple is just marketing it, learning about marketing and marketing it. That's simple. And again, for sales, right? Instead of just making sales, which would be simple, people make it complicated by worrying about, will people have the money to pay me? Will people have the money to spend? Am I asking for too much money? And on and on and on and on and on, right? That's complicated. All that stuff's complicated. Simple is just saying, yeah, look, knowing how to do sales essentially. So there's a 5-step sales process that makes things very easy that I teach in NLP practitioner training. And I go through it with my clients and all those kinds of things. But there's a simple way of creating sales, and sales is just servicing someone. It's just solving a problem that people have, right? But what people make complicated about it is they make the sales all about them. When you make sales about you, it's complicated because the person just wants to know what's in it for them. Okay, so that's how people make things complicated, right? So it's all the fears and the doubts around being rejected or abandoned or not liked or not being good enough or not owning your worth. And all those are the stories. What will people think about me? Because, often most people think that everyone's hyper-focused on them. I can assure you they're not. Everyone's worried about themselves. That's life. Okay, but what makes things more simple is putting yourself in an environment of growth, which is around other people who are already doing what you want to achieve. Okay, because when you get yourself in an environment of people who already do what you want to achieve, it normalizes the behaviors of making that your reality and for you to take actions. Okay, but the thing is, when you put yourself in an environment where people are already achieving that and take action, that can trigger off some of the stuff you need to work on. But instead of hiding from that and going, oh my God, I want to avoid that, or I don't want to feel that, because, you get these sensations in your body and everyone thinks they're going to die from them. You're not, trust me, right? Like, you've got to go there and then feel where those blocks are, and then you can work on them. Okay, so to work on these triggers, to clear this stuff out, to get rid of all of that stuff that's making life complicated, you can either, do it yourself if you've got tools like, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy, hypnosis, those kinds of things. So I coach myself a lot. Or you work with a coach who can help you clear that stuff out. Okay, that's what I do with my clients. That's what we do through all the trainings that I run. People work on their own stuff so that they can make life more simple. Okay, that's what I do in the Elevate program with my private clients. There's people that are already trained as coaches, but as they level up, they need help to really shift how they think about when they go to a different level of visibility, when they go to a different price point, when they let go of some of their old clients. We work through that stuff so that they can level up and make life and business much more Simple. Here's what I do in the Coaching Circle Insiders is I give people ways of thinking about business and themselves and everything else so that they can make life more simple. Okay, so today's homework, I'm going to give you some homework today, is to think about your goals for the year ahead and get really honest with yourself about what obstacles do you have in achieving them. Because this is the thing, this is the natural thing about goals. When you set yourself goals, there will be obstacles. That's unavoidable. That's part of it, because a goal is about you becoming somebody that has that as your reality. And there's got to be obstacles, because if there wasn't, you would just have it now. Okay, you would have it now. So there's going to be some obstacles. So really think about that. What are the obstacles? And are there fears and doubts or like scarcity type mindset of, fears around abandonment or rejection or looking too salesy or being too greedy or am I really worth that or anything else that's preventing you from just going and doing the thing? That's preventing you from making life simple. Okay, so you got to remember that simple is when you decide on an outcome and you take action until you achieve it. That's simple. Complicated is wanting to have an outcome and then talking yourself out of it, right? And acting based on negative self-talk and what ifs and fears and all those kinds of things. So the more deep work that you do on yourself, so the more you decide, the more you take action, the more you put yourself out there, the more you set yourself big goals, the more you're going to find stuff to work on, right? But you got to do the work. And then as you do, life becomes more simple. It becomes more simple when you do the inner work and you get rid of all the fears of abandonment and being seen and being judged, and you really own your worth and get to know that you are a person of intrinsic value because you are here, and that you can keep adding to that value with your experience and your growth and your learning as you go. Okay, there's no you're just going to suddenly be the most successful coach if you first started. Because imagine that, if you started something that you're never going to grow in, how boring. Of course you're going to grow and expand, right? You're going to go through that. You're going to need to work on yourself as you go through that and continue making it more simple. Because as things grow, as your business grows, as how the people that you help grow, because I can tell you, when I first started my business, I wasn't working with, CEOs of $20 million plus businesses, right? I wasn't working with people at that level because I wasn't there yet. It's in the growth where I've developed and become more of value and mastered my craft that I work with people who have more complex needs, because I can make it more simple. All right. When I first started coaching, if I thought about working with someone who made multi-million dollars, I would have made it very complicated about me and who I am and am I good enough and I'm worthy, rah, rah. I had to work on myself and get rid of all of that stuff to make it more simple. Okay, it's the same as making money. I had to get rid of all the stuff that made it complicated and make it more simple. So really think about that for yourself today. What can you make more simple? What would life be like if you just made things more simple? What could you let go of? What are the complicated things that you could just choose to let go of and make your life and business more simple?